Episode 3. We are here. The rankings have just came out. Not a lot of change again, guys, but we will go down to 25. Dakota and I, fresh back from Baton Rouge, had a hell of a time.
Go Calling Tigers. Baton Rouge, baby.
Go Tigers.
I got a little go Saints, but
Jay and Daniels, Mr. Heisman, Dak.
Derek Carr guy.
Mr. Heisman, I'll stand on the table. 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's a dog, man. Yeah, he's a monster. That was one of the best performances I've seen. I was a little hazy, 50-50 watching it. Didn't realize he had 230. Didn't realize he had 234 on the ground until I looked as we were walking out of the stadium, and I was like, God damn.
Yeah, when you said that, I was like, oh.
I don't think any of us had any eyes on that. But when he ripped off the 85-yard touchdown run, it was like, all right, he's off.
That'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stu came back from there. You were watching, I'm sure, the Michigan game. We were watching that at Chimes. Michigan, Penn State. JJ throws 60 yards, 8 passes in total, but Michigan wins 24-15, correct? Yeah.
I think that's right. Yeah.
24-15.
Yeah. Absolute bludgeoning. Saw Blake Corum's face after the game. Nasty gash in the middle of his face.
True warrior.
Boys beat him down. Didn't throw a single pass. They threw one, called back because of pass interference. But yeah, I feel like that's embarrassing. I mean, if I were Michigan and the team came into like the big house and just ran in the second half and didn't complete a single pass and beat us, I feel like I would be pretty embarrassed. So I feel like that's a pretty dominating win for Michigan, honestly.
Michigan, Big Blue, stays at 3. We'll get into the top 25. There was a little change from 1 to 2, but 25, Kansas, fresh off a loss, just lost to. It's escaping me right now. Who are those two? It was
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech. They lose to Texas Tech, the Red Raiders. They still remain at 25. Got Kansas State this weekend in a big one. I believe it is in Lawrence. So in-state rivalry game there. Tulane, 9-1. Their only loss being Ole Miss. They go down a spot, but they still are in the 24. Oklahoma State clobbered, destroyed, smoked, waxed by UCF wearing the space uniforms. In Orlando. That was embarrassing. And so the Big 12. The Big 12 is kind of who's going to play in the Big 12 championship. Now we got a whole crazy mix where Oklahoma's still alive, but they lost to Oklahoma State. Texas is still alive, but they lose to Oklahoma. I think Kansas State still has life, and then Texas plays Iowa State later on. But there's that. Utah at 7-3. They lost a close one in Salt Lake to Washington, and then Kansas State at 7-3. There, they've bounced 4 spots up. North Carolina Tar Heels win a close one against Duke. They're 8-2, and they move up 4 spots. There's some shifts of big numbers here for some teams. Notre Dame, they get up to 1 spot there to 19. They're 7-3. Tennessee gets smoked at Columbia. We'll touch on that game. Mizzou really showed them there that, we're a better team in the SEC than you. Get out of here, Tennessee. Zona. Wildcats. They go up 4 spots. They continue to win. Iowa in the game where I believe it was the lowest again. Actually, it was the lowest under ever set in college football history yet again against Rutgers. The under hits. It was 22-0. LSU, the Fighting Tigers, they move up 4 spots after beating Florida at home. That was an electric game where it was there for the night game. Unreal atmosphere. Crazy win for them. Electric offense. The defense, it's like, where is it? But their offense is so good still.
Heisman moment.
There it is. Oklahoma, they move up 3 spots. They're at 8-2 there. Ole Miss, 8-2 as well. They get smoked also by Georgia in Athens. Penn State loses to Michigan at home. They're 8-2. Oregon State moves up a spot. They play Washington this week in a big game. They're at Oregon State, home game for them. Louisville gets into the top 10. It's cool to see them. This is the Cardinals. Cardinals 9-1. They still have life if they get to the ACC championship and can beat Florida State. Hey, I mean, that's a team that still technically has life. Mizzou. How about those Tigers? Dak? Like that great win for them, as we touched on. They're up to the 9th spot, which is really wild to see. There's no change with Bama. Bama still stays there at 8. They beat Kentucky. Texas gets away barely in Fort Worth. They beat TCU by 3. They remain at 7. Oregon remains at 6. Washington there, like I said, at 5. Like I said, there's no change. I mean, there's not a lot of going on. Oregon. Who did Oregon play? Sorry, guys, slipping me. Who did Oregon get there?
Oregon played.
Who did they get?
Was USC?
USC.
It was USC. They beat USC. I think they beat by 9 or something like that.
Yeah,
I think it was a pretty close game.
36-27. USC covered though. USC covered the spread.
USC covered.
I should have known that. That was my pick. I was watching.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, USC covered.
Got it right.
I think it was a 2-touchdown spread, if I'm not mistaken, right, Dak?
16.5.
Oh, wow. Okay, 16.5.
Way too many points for Caleb Williams.
A good pull there. Oregon's at 6. Washington 5. Florida State at 4. They're playing, I believe, North Alabama this week.
That's game of the week right there.
Yeah, they beat Miami. Michigan beats Penn State. Remains at 3 at 10-0. The Buckeyes move from 1 to 2. The Buckeyes are now 2, and then Georgia, like we said, just destroyed Ole Miss, pushing them up to 1. They are all 10-0.
Creamed them.
5 on. So not a lot of change, as we touched on. What stuck out the most to you guys? So what obviously there's the Georgia-Ohio State shift, but what really sticks out to you after reading all that?
Rankings-wise?
Mizzou jumped up. They got a nice jump. I feel like they're super happy looking at these rankings this week, those Tiger fans.
Yeah, I feel like that was one of the biggest shifts. And then moving, I feel like they finally got their flowers. They played Georgia tight. That was one of their losses. They barely lost to LSU. Probably should have been a little bit higher even before. That's why the jump was so big. So I feel like they kind of got the respect they deserved after Penn State looked stinky again. Ole Miss got completely shellacked, like absolutely waxed. And so that's a team you can jump them up against. And so I'd say that's the biggest thing. Maybe a little bit surprised. They were behind Oregon State. Was Mizzou, or was Mizzou ahead of Oregon State last week?
They were behind because they were 14.
Yeah, they're behind them. So I guess you could say that was maybe a little surprising. But now I think they just finally got the respect. But nothing really surprising. I feel like every game played out how everybody thought it was going to. And so it's one of those things like, how do you make a lot of changes? Can't do a whole lot with that.
Yeah, I think Louisville just being at 10 is awesome because they got their game against Miami this week, and we'll touch on that later. But that's going to be a good measuring stick game, I think, for them for a potential upcoming matchup with Florida State in the ACC championship.
Yeah. Also,
you could potentially say LSU still sitting there at 15 with 3 losses. We touched on it a little bit before the show. Who would you put them behind?
Oh no, I think
so it is.
Tiger fans, you guys got to be super happy about being there too.
15's nice, being at 7-3, that's not bad at all. So you could say that's a little surprising as well. But also, it's still like North Carolina being ranked is a tiny bit sus. Like I get it, like what the record is, but all they do is play close games, and they don't look good. They don't look good at all.
Yeah. They're 20th. Yeah, they don't look great. They're to me probably one of the more fraudulent teams in the top 25. When you look at a lot of these teams, I don't really see how that's the case. So North Carolina there, but touching on, we get back to the 25 here. We got some of those games. Kansas State, like I said, in-state battle there. Kansas State favored by 8 points. There you go. I kind of like the Jayhawks. I know they just lost, but what do you guys got on this game?
Yeah, I mean, I was riding them for a minute. I think I took them 3 weeks in a row on my 3 picks. Finally let me down after being successful for a little bit. But I mean, I think I'm liking a bounce back too this week. I think the -8, that's interesting. I feel like that's a lot of points. So I don't know if I can take them like to cover, but I feel like I trust Kansas money line to win the game at least.
Yeah, you said it's 8 points spread. Kansas.
Yeah, Kansas, and I put Kansas State -8, but Kansas is the favorite in this game.
It's in Lawrence.
That's kind of shocking. I feel like everybody was kind of waiting for Kansas to drop one, and that's what happened last week against Texas Tech. It's almost like they were due for it, and they just played a stinky game. It was 16-13. 8 points is a lot because Kansas State has played everybody close this year. I feel like they're even teams. Like that's a pretty even matchup, even with it being at Kansas. Yeah, I don't know. Betting man, like that's way too many points. That's what you take. But I like Kansas to bounce. I think honestly, I just hope Kansas wins because Kansas is cool. Nothing against Kansas State either. I think Kansas State's a pretty cool team too. But I just want to see Kansas stay in that top 25. I don't want to see them drop out. It's cool seeing them there.
It's just cool seeing the Mizzou and the Kansas is the world. It's good to see. It's a good thing for football.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where their coach ends up too, Lance Leipold.
Yeah, if he's going to stay or not. That's a name getting thrown around. Obviously, breaking news. Jimbo Fisher is gone from Texas.
Oh, yeah. We got
big, obviously not in the top 25, but worth mentioning. Maybe we circle back to that and discuss some possible names. I've thrown it out there on air this whole week.
I would like to, yeah.
Calling out, if I'm in, I'm calling Urban Meyer. Well, what do we do? Call the villain himself. Yeah. Call the villain himself. And so
Lane Kiffin's
a name I could think. Lane came out obviously after losing to Georgia, made a statement about, which kind of piqued my interest a little bit with this job of, hey, yeah, I mean, they have 24 5-stars, I believe was what he said. We have one. That's really what the difference is. And that, to me, although Ole Miss solid football program, it is not. You do not have the resources you do at Texas A&M in the SEC. They have the foundation. The thing about the A&M job is to just pivot real quick. It's like they have the foundation. They've recruited really well, even with Jimbo there, even though they haven't won. They still have guys there. They have all the money and resources to do so. So that job to me is a top tier job in college football.
And as long as you get the right guy, like as your next head coach, you're not going to lose a lot of recruits because that's a problem. Obviously, whenever you fire a guy like Jimbo Fisher, who brings in a top 5 class every single year, you always worry that a lot of those guys are going to go and decommit. If you bring in a guy like Urban Meyer, who knows, honestly, after the reputation, it is a little tainted right now. That could be one where he's got to rebuild it a tiny bit, but he already did that at Ohio State, so I don't think it would even matter. But if you bring in a guy like Lane Kiffin, which guys naturally love and would want to go play for, then you don't have to start from zero. You don't have to start from scratch. A lot of those guys are going to stick around. So, yeah, foundation is there. Correct me if I'm wrong, too. I feel like Lane Kiffin has said that before about Ole Miss, at least since he's been there. I think he's brought up before. He's like, hey, we're doing what we can do. We're kind of limited, which can be kind of a bad look for the players that you currently have. But I also think Lane Kiffin's a guy that just doesn't give a damn. He doesn't care. And he doesn't care about sticking around anywhere either. I don't want to say he has no loyalty, but he'll bounce around. He just wants to go coach football, and he wants to coach at the best school. So we'll see.
Yeah, I think Lane Kiffin is one. And then another name I heard thrown around there that's going to hit home for all of us boys is apparently there was a rumor going around that the Board of Regents at Texas A&M want to throw as much money as possible at Dan Campbell from the Detroit Lions and try to get
him. Whatever. Yeah.
He's got the Detroit Lions now at the top they've ever been.
He's going to go to the NFL playoffs, be a top 3 seed. He's like, you know what?
The guy Nick I'm on air with all week has been trying to poke the bear on that one. I am like, no.
I don't think there's any legs on it whatsoever.
That'd be blasphemous. That's blasphemous.
What I was saying with Gashi, one of our friends, is how much money do you think it would take though? How much of the oil money, if you're Dan Campbell, do they have to give you to pull you away from the Lions?
I don't think there's a number. He's not that kind of guy.
He's one guy that I'm like now, maybe in a couple of years.
No numbers. Wow.
I don't think there's enough because it's not like I know he graduated from there. I get it, but it's not no disrespect to no, screw that. Disrespect to A&M. You're not Alabama. You're not Georgia. Heck, I'll throw Ohio State, Florida, Michigan. It's not one of those.
You've been there in Detroit.
It's not that gig.
Yeah, you built Detroit Lions up. I don't know if you'd want to leave that right when they're finally, we're going to win the division. It looks like
you leave the NFL if you get a college team that's an NFL comp. Texas A&M is a 9-3 team. That's not an NFL comp. So you're not doing that for a little cash.
Well, my serious take on Texas A&M, if I'm them, you just spent all this money on this buyout for Jimbo Fisher, presented the check from the donor at halftime during the
160
game.
mil.
Canned the man the next day.
Yep.
So
they got the cash.
That's the second biggest buyout. That's the biggest buyout in college football history, and it's twice the amount of the biggest one prior to it.
Yeah.
And so if I'm Texas A&M, I feel like I want to go after more of a budget coach, maybe like a buy low, sell high type of coach like Lance Leipold from Kansas or one of these maybe less like sexy name guys and just like one of those guys that just wants to go out there and win football games,
I had that take too. I was like, if you're A&M, you got to take a mini step back and be like, all right, let's reassess for a second, at least for a few years. But I feel like Florida just did that, and Auburn also just did that. And I think Auburn was one of the big. Were they the next biggest? They were a bit. That was a pretty big buyout. I'm pretty
Malzahn
sure.
was the biggest before it. Yeah,
that was the biggest before then. Yeah, and I feel like Florida and Auburn just did that.
Second, twice as much though. That's what's crazy.
And like I like Billy Napier. He's a Louisiana guy, but everybody was like, "That's a bold call." Going, granted, UL's a little bit different, but still going from there straight into the SEC. If you got recruits like that and you're A&M, throw the cash, just go get a guy. And Kreitz, you said it. I think everyone knows who the guy is. Like that's who it is, man.
Yeah. I mean, with Texas going into the Big 12, I know to the SEC from the Big 12, same with Oklahoma. Like you've already been competing for recruits, which A&M's got, but that's been what A&M's thing is. It's like, oh, we're in the SEC. Texas isn't. Like we're not going to play at Lawrence or you know what I mean, or Ames, Iowa. No, we're playing against LSU. We're playing against Alabama. Going back to what you guys said with the low budget, Stu, no disrespect to these guys' names, but the two top guys that are actually on, if there is betting odds for this already, it's going to be Mike Elko from Duke, who's been great. I mean, he's really built that program out. And then Jeff Traylor from down at UTSA. Texas guy, had him on air, really good dude, awesome. I think he'd fit that culture of like Texas football, Texas high school coach. Like he even said that with us. He's like, I'm just a Texas high school football coach that turned into a college coach. And it's taking UTSA, the Roadrunners, like far as they can go. But there's also that. Dan Lanning is also a name.
I was going to say Lanning,
Which for me, it's like Oregon jumping to the Big Ten. I don't know if he'd want to do that, but he's familiar with the SEC. He's coached briefly at Bama and then obviously all at Georgia. So, there's some names. I mean, I think Lane Kiffin makes a whole lot of sense.
It does.
It's a big name that's proven, can recruit, and can kind of play that almost. I mean, A&M's its own thing. Call them villain, call them whatever you want. They are just their own. A&M's A&M, and there's a ton of money and a ton of resources.
Dude, that's like the perfect path for Lane Kiffin too. Number one, he would love the check. Lane Kiffin would take the check every day of the week. Number two, I feel like everybody knows, like he's got his eyes set on Bama for when Nick Saban leaves. He wants it. He for sure wants that, and that's the next. You go Ole Miss, you go a little bit bigger in Texas A&M, and then you kind of just keep climbing the ladder. It's like it's the right path for him. That one makes what makes the most sense is Texas A&M. Those jackasses, they want Urban Meyer. That makes the most sense.
It's just like too perfect.
Everyone does. Everyone
that's a perfect
It's
fit.
too perfect.
I would hate him so much. I don't know if anybody would like him outside of College Station. People would like him, like everyone would love Urban in College Station. Otherwise, that would be one of the most hated teams in college football by far, by a landslide.
Yeah.
For sure.
I had to touch on Jimbo. That is big college news.
Yeah.
Moving back into the top 25, Utah, Zona, the underrated Cats, 17. That was a good rating for them just all season. They've been winning sneaky games, covering for a lot of people. I mean, I like Zona here at home. It's a pick 'em. Utah's good. I just think they're kind of cooked. I don't know. Like after their last loss to Washington, and that was kind of the big one I thought they'd get up for. I think Zona's playing for more. I just do.
Yeah, they are, and they just keep cruising. Every single week, I'm like, you can't beat another top 25 team in a row. And they just keep doing it. This is another one where I'm like, eventually they have to drop one. Like, are they going to – how many have they won in a row? 5 straight? I think they won 5 straight. And so this is another spot where it's like, can Zona do it again? They're only a 1-point favorite. So I feel like Vegas is saying the same thing. They're like, is this really going to happen again? But I think you're right. Utah's a little bit cooked. And momentum in college football is huge. It's one of the biggest things. And so I feel like Zona, especially at home, they're just going to keep cruising. They're going to keep winning these games. I don't know. Do you guys know who else they have for the rest of the year?
Arizona.
Are either of them still playing for the Pac-12 championship or no?
I don't think so. No,
I think it's just Oregon State now at this point. Oregon, Washington, maybe. I think that'd be it though. I mean, Zona might. It would have to be a lot of losses. I think maybe Washington would have to win out, and the other ones would have to lose both these games.
So technically, Zona they only have 2 Pac-12 losses. It's the USC and it's the Washington. So I have no idea how it works. But all they have left, they have Utah this week, and then they have Arizona State. Arizona's going to go the crazy. They're playing for a New Year's Six bowl. Yeah. And it's like it's not out of the question. Yeah. They're 9-3 with that many top 25 wins. That's nuts, man. Good for them. Good for them. Whatever.
So Utah's got also just so Cam Rising is coming back, or is he transferring?
Like next. You're talking about next year?
Yeah. I'm talking about next year.
I don't know.
I think he has to grad transfer. I don't know though.
Okay. Yeah.
That would be my guess.
At Texas, I just don't know his eligibility at Utah. He's older.
I don't know. Yeah, isn't he 25 or trying to be 25?
Probably 24 or 23. One of the two has to be.
Okay.
Yeah, I would guess he's probably grad transfer.
No, makes sense. But yeah, I think North Carolina popped up there. North Carolina taking on Clemson and Dabo Swinney with all that drip. I'm just not buying North Carolina. I think they're just kind of the amount of wins they have, and just the competition they've played. Like you said, Dak, I think you touched on it. It's a lot of close games. I'm good on UNC.
I think they won in double overtime again.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, this is battle of the mid, I feel like.
ACC is just not really that hot to me, and that's why I question. We'll get to it a little bit. I think FSU is a really good team, but it's like
I agree. What was it that Dabo said after they beat Notre Dame? He was like, "Oh, if Clemson's a stock, you got to buy stock now," or something like that. Yeah.
I might be buying.
Are you guys going Clemson this week?
I might be buying the points. I don't know about the full.
What's the spread? What do we got?
7 right there, North Carolina.
Oh yeah, are you? Yeah, are you joking? North Carolina's beaten every team by 2 to 5 points. Yeah, Clemson's gonna cover there, but they're both still stinky.
Who do you think's winning? Who you guys think is winning?
I'm going Clemson. I'll buy the stock. Whatever.
There you go. Buying the stock. I mean, if it's at home,
I'll buy the stock. I'll buy the stock.
I'll buy the stock. They'll go. Clemson probably is going to go 8-4 again.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. I'm all set on either of their stock, to be honest.
I don't like
North Carolina out of the top 25.
I'm good. Yeah, that's Drake May single-handedly right there. Next up is Notre Dame. Actually, no, we're moving on to Penn State, Rutgers. Just jump into that. Penn State obviously just lost to Michigan. Rutgers puts up a goose egg in Iowa City. But Penn State, 10-2. That's what it looks like it's going to be. They play State at the end of the year. I know that at Ford Field. Good God, do not want to watch that one. But yeah, I Penn State.
I feel like we need to talk about James Franklin's coaching decisions too. I mean,
please. Yeah.
I mean, so the first 2-point conversion, I can kind of understand it. Like you want to you trust your team, you want to show them you trust them, want to get some juice going against Michigan in town. But the second choice to go for 2 literally put the team out of the game. Like that literally put Penn State out of the game after that. Like you had a chance to take the field goal, and then if you do that, you just got to hold Michigan, get the ball back, score again. He literally turned it from an 8-point game to like a 9-point game and changed the whole game with I think it was 4 minutes left still. Like you got a decent amount of time, 3 timeouts. It literally made no sense. And then you fire.
What did he say after too? Didn't he had a crazy quote about it? It was something stupid. Honestly,
he said, "Trust the stats. We trust our stats, our analytics."
Yeah.
It's like no, it doesn't make sense. Well. Yeah, like if anything, it just doesn't make sense for him. It gives him a horrible look as their head coach.
Yeah, I don't know. He's just he's a very, I don't want to say average coach because their defense is still good consistently, and occasionally they bring in weapons like KJ Hamler and say, yeah, defense is still good. But I also I get their defense is solid, but I also kind of still think they get to save up until they play in Ohio State and in Michigan because they just play garbage teams throughout the entire year. And then they just pump everything into their defense and they pray to God their offense can do something and they can't. Yeah. They're the definition of they take advantage of the lower end Big Ten teams. They're always going to be 10-2. Penn State's not going to find anything better at this point. I don't know, where do you go from here? You have to go get a stellar head coach if you want to consistently win the Big Ten against Ohio State and Michigan. And I just don't know if they're going to find that. So they're just stuck, man. And James Franklin's going to hold on.
They're not going to buy him out. They're not going to buy him out.
Oh, God, no.
Yeah,
I don't know for a long time, dude.
I mean, you're 12th in the nation right now. Like, it's just that he's at that spot where he's at purgatory of can't beat the Michigans, can't beat the Ohio States. If I'm him and you're kind of pounding the table for your job, it's like, okay, at least the Big Ten now, it's a lot more spread out. Michigan's not, you don't have to play Michigan every year. You're going to play probably Michigan, Ohio State every year. But I know for a fact they're not even playing Michigan next year.
3 more years until they play Michigan.
Yeah, is that it? 3 more? Yeah, there you go. So, I mean, that's kind of what I would be kind of pound the table if I'm James Franklin to keep my job. It's just like he's not He's the 10-2 coach. Like that's just what you are. So
and they've had the years where they randomly beat Michigan and the years where they randomly beat Ohio State, and that's what keeps it. It almost feels like one of those. If the Big Ten wasn't changing, it feels like one of those things where it's a mutual parting of the ways. Where James Frankel's like, I got to go somewhere and find something different.
Exactly.
Like, go get difference coordinator. Like he needs a change up, honestly, because not a great head coach, but it's just grown stale. Yeah. And Penn State also needs a change up, but they can't force that hand because who in the hell are you going to get? Like what's going to be the difference maker there? Like, I honestly don't know.
Taking the A&M job before the Penn State job, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, who really wants to go to Penn State? Like, if you're Penn State, your only real options would be like literally Lance Leipold from Kansas, Elko if he doesn't take like an A&M job. Like, basically, you get the scraps from everyone else.
Yeah, and then what does that turn into? Like, you're not gonna probably get any better than what you already are. Like, now you're getting Washington, the Oregons, the USC, UCLA's. UCLA too. Also, it just came out today. I saw reports they're probably going to can Chip Kelly. So that's another job opening.
I mean, if I'm James Franklin, that's what I'm maybe trying to look at as an offensive coordinator. I mean, you got Manny Diaz after he got canned as your DC.
Oh, Chip Kelly. Yeah.
Get
back into Pennsylvania near Philly.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he'll probably have a job somewhere. I think, like you said, as a coordinator, Stu, that makes sense. But that'll be interesting, kind of see who UCLA will pull now going into the Big Ten. It's like, obviously, of the 4 schools that are coming in from a football standpoint, probably just the least, but still, it's UCLA. It's like you got the Rose Bowl. Like, there's still those resources there and still a good football school to where, like, I hope they move on and just do something different because I think they're going to need to going into the Big Ten to keep those teams that are coming in.
Dude, it could be a Nebraska situation if they don't. It very well could be, and it could get really grim, really fast.
And the transfer rumors are already going for the UCLA players, like Dante Moore. He's their 5-star QB. That's from Detroit.
Right.
Yeah, they're already starting the transfer rumors for him for where he's going to go.
Makes sense. Yeah. So Penn State, Rutgers, that game going on. We're moving on to Louisville. Man, they got Miami this week. I'm assuming it's down there in Miami. With the -1, I like Louisville. I don't think Miami's got it figured out just yet. I like what Louisville's doing, and they're still alive. It's one of those teams where it's cool that at 10 they are alive. I think if Florida State wins out, which the only game they really have to worry about is going to the Swamp, could be an interesting game. Florida playing for really nothing. We saw Florida; they can move the rock. They can. They're not a great team by any means, but they can move the rock. So. That would be interesting to see how that one goes for Florida State, referring to when Florida State plays at the Swamp next week. But they
just play teams. They usually play teams kind of tight too in the Swamp. They do.
Yeah. And then that'll be the ACC's championship. We'll probably see a Louisville versus FSU, which I'm excited to see. I think that'll be cool.
That's a fun game.
This is a measuring stick game for sure. Because I mean, Florida State, they played a close game. They were at home against Miami last week, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think if you can go into Miami and you beat a Hurricanes team that's coming off a loss and you win handedly, I mean, I feel like you gotta like your chances going against Florida State in the ACC.
If they can like truly take care of business, like 10+ points, that's a huge win. Because it's not like Miami's terrible.
No.
Mario Cristobal is a good coach. Yeah, they've lost a lot of tight games, but.
It's a good test. Good measure.
Dude, I agree. It's sweet seeing Louisville top 10.
I like it. I like seeing awesome faces.
They've done it in the past too. Like the Teddy Bridgewater years were so fun, and obviously Lamar, that was that was fun as shit. And so like it's cool seeing them back there. I like it. Very fun.
I like seeing Mizzou even higher at 9. That's so cool for them.
Yeah,
good for the SEC and just Mizzou in general. It's good to see them back because they have just been terrible since really getting to the SEC. They take on Florida there, -12, beat the living shit out of Tennessee. And like that call there. Did you call that one on our last episode? Dax?
Stu did.
I
think we all said we liked it.
I took it on air. Legit, like spreads on Fridays. I took it on air and it hit, obviously. So good call there. We all kind of were in the same boat. Mizzou, it makes sense. We all kind of they're better than Tennessee.
Way better. There's more consistent than Tennessee too.
Yeah.
And it's cool because I think it was like at the start of the year, everybody was booing Brady Cook, and their head coach got up. They're like, "Oh, you have no idea how hard this kid works," which usually is lame, but it actually worked out in this situation because now Brady Cook's been one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and Luther Burden
What do we feel about the 12 this week?
I love the 12. Give me the 12 all day. Like I love my LSU Tigers, but there's a better chance that Mizzou covers against a team than LSU covers against a team.
Yeah.
Just because LSU's defense, they couldn't stop a Pee Wee football team. Well, like a bunch of amputees. Like they wouldn't be able to do it. Like they couldn't. And so, but Mizzou covering, that's actually doable. And so I would take Mizzou 12 all day. They're cooking. They're going to be 10-2. That's a New Year's Six bowl team for sure.
Yeah.
They're going to a New Year's Six, and they're gonna be super fun. Like that could be an 11-2 football team at the end of the year.
Another name, Eli Drinkwitz. I think it's coach's name there. Another name thrown in that A&M pool.
Yeah.
That would make sense too. I mean, he's taken them from the ashes. They were nothing, and he's came in and already made them good very quickly. So there we got Mizzou, and Bama taking on that second to last week SEC.
Chattanooga.
Bama looking like, and we all kind of agree, that is a sleeping giant. Would not want to see them in the playoffs if I am any of these other teams. Milrose figuring it out. They beat Kentucky, Bama. Where do you put them? Where do you guys put them when it comes to title contender? What spot do you put them at?
Everyone's gonna say SEC homer. 2 dose. 2. Them in Georgia, like 1-2. Not even a joke. They're terrifying. And I think it's like, at least me looking at it. So when they beat Ole Miss, it was like, okay, Bama's arriving. When they took care of business against Tennessee, it was like, Bama's a little spooky. When they beat LSU, it was like, all right, I think Bama's here, but I think people were still kind of holding off. It's like, oh, Bama is scary. This Kentucky game was one where it's like, okay, if they truly go in and just wreck them, then it's spooky. I know like that's the smallest team that they played out of the ones that I just mentioned, but that's what Bama does. After this last week, and I'm like, okay, they did it again. Bama's truly arrived. And you can say the same thing for Georgia right now too. You're those are the teams that you're waiting on. Like, okay, are they going to get there this year? Milroe has 600 yards and 10 touchdowns in his last 2 games. 600 yards, 10 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure no turnovers in his last 2. And so that's who wants to go play him? You never want to play Bama. Everybody's sitting there all year, and it's like praying to God that it's a down year. Just like last year, everybody was praying to God they didn't get in, and it panned out. And now this year, I think it's the same thing. Everyone's like, please don't let them in. Just please, for the love of God, do not let Bama in. Like, hoping Georgia wins, which is a weird thing to say, but I think people are hoping Georgia wins that SEC championship game.
Yeah, no, we were saying earlier that if Bama, they win out and beat Georgia, which I think they will, that's like going to be my bold prediction in the SEC championship game. Then like, where does that leave teams like Texas? Is Texas getting in? Because Bama's going to be Bama's the 2 seed at that point, right? Or 3 seed.
I mean, I think Michigan Ohio State winner is going to probably be 1 at that point. FSU, if they're undefeated, maybe because they have no losses.
If FSU is undefeated, they probably put them at 2. Sure.
I mean, if you beat Georgia and your only loss is to Texas, who probably is going to be the Big 12 champ, maybe, who knows? That we'll touch Texas next. They can not even make it, honestly. I mean, you got to put them that high. They're not going to be a 4 seed, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, they still got everything in front of them. I think. They went out.
It just, I think it like in terms of rankings too, it just depends on how the committee looks at it. Because if you just look at it like, they got worked by Texas at home. It was 2 scores. That Bama team is I know it's technically the same team. So different.
Yes,
that's a Bama team that the next week they were down like 3-0 or up 3-0 against USF.
Yeah, it was bad.
Yeah, exactly.
They didn't even have Milroe playing.
Milroe got benched. Milroe looked awful. And so it's one of those things where if Bama wouldn't play Texas now, Milroe wouldn't look that bad. It would still be a super close game because we'll touch on Texas. I still think that defense is legit.
Yeah.
So I still think it would be a close game, but Milroe would not look nearly as bad. So if the committee looks at it, it's like, not the same team. I know they have the loss, but it's different. Then there's no reason if they beat Georgia that they shouldn't be sitting there at 2.
Everyone today on air on Austin radio, ESPN Austin, said that no matter if there was a DKR here in Austin, if it was on neutral site, Bama plays Texas today. Bama's beating Texas.
Oh, they killed. Yeah. They killed.
For Bama. Yeah, and that's just the state of where that team is. Texas here, they limp away from TCU. Another 3-point win. It was out there in Fort Worth. Sarkisian, I just do not understand what his game plan is. They're up 3 scores in the first half again. His first 20 plays are great. His play calling is awesome. This wasn't Quinn's fault. Really wasn't even the offense's fault. Oh, Jonathan Brooks, who's number 1 right now to get drafted out of all the running backs, just tore his ACL too. So not good news for Texas. You got CJ Baxter there, who's a good backup. Savion Red, Blue's also in there. So
I like CJ Baxter. He's good. I like CJ Baxter.
Yeah, he's good. But again, freshman, your guys got to step up. You have the depth Texas does, but this is put up or shut up. And Quinn Ewers is back now. Rumors about him possibly staying, which is how loaded this QB class is. Would not shock me if he stays another year. He's getting paid a couple mil to go to Texas. He probably enjoyed that and probably be one of the top prospects. You got Bo Nix in this one. You got probably JJ McCarthy. He's going to be gone. Obviously, Caleb Williams, Michael Penix, Jalen Daniels. You got a lot of guys. I'm probably forgetting a few that would be they're going to get drafted. You're not going to get drafted ahead of them at this point for Quinn.
Drake May.
Drake May.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
Number 2 is going to be Drake May, most likely. So, I forgot a huge one there. Texas goes to Iowa State at Ames. Going to be a weird night game, tough place to play. 7.5. Again, don't love that line. I've seen it as high. I think it probably opened up closer. I think it opened up around 9, and it's probably gone down to 7.5. Obviously, Quinn going to be playing there. I mean, they're just limping into it. The path's in front of them. I mean, some stuff has to happen, obviously. Oregon and Washington, they'll figure themselves out because that's probably going to be your Pac-12 championship there at 6-5. But Bama is just on your tail. I don't think that Bama is going to jump them until they play Georgia because they have to play Auburn and Chattanooga. That's it. But once they play Georgia, there's no question in my mind if they beat Georgia, no matter who Texas plays in the Big 12 championship, if Bama wins, they're going to jump Texas regardless of the head-on win, regardless.
Totally, yeah. Bama's at 3. Like we were just saying, Bama's at 3 if they beat Georgia in the SEC championship. So
yeah, maybe 2. It just depends on what happens, right? That's the crazy thing with Bama is they control a lot there with that matchup against Georgia. I don't know about you guys. The Ames,
I don't know, dude.
Texas, to me, they got a lot of figuring out to do if they really are going to consider themselves a title contender. I mean, it's in front of them still. They just got to keep winning. But that defense, it's not even the defense. The defense got points put on it, but the way they're playing in the second half, specifically the third quarter, no points in the third quarter. I think they had 3 at the end. Just it's not good. TCU's not a good team this year. That is not the same team as last year.
And it's just they look less and less like a not even title contender, but less and less like a playoff contender every single week. Because the Kansas State one was you were up. It was 3 scores.
Kansas State's a good team. I mean, they're still ranked.
Kansas State's top 25. It keeps getting to the point where now you're playing unranked teams and you're only winning by 3 points.
Right.
And that's a serious issue. Sarkisian has had this issue ever since he's been at USC. He can't put together 4 quarters of football. He physically cannot do it. Even when he was the OC at Bama, those offenses were absolutely disgusting. And you're right in Saban's coattails, so it's a little bit different. But you can talk about when he was at the Falcons even. Those Falcons offenses slowly digressed, especially as the season would go on. So this is it's kind of what he's been, but this is the most talent that he's had as a head coach. And it's tough because Texas just has to keep doing their thing. Even if they win ugly, you can still get in because, granted, you're banking on you need a Florida State loss, you need a Pac-12 loss, you need some things to happen in front of you. But that defense is good enough, but how many times can that defense continue to just squeak these games out for you?
Right.
They're riding them heavy. Eventually,
does Sark
might
call
fail.
The plays?
I don't know. Yeah, does he?
Yeah.
Sark's the play caller. Yeah, I feel like if you're the play caller, you got to be putting up at least high 30s, 40 points in these games, because your defense isn't going to be on that same level as your offense anytime a head coach is calling the offense. I mean, I guess
Ohio's known for his offense, right? That's what he's supposed to be is their guy, and he just can't put together, it seems like, a full game other than Alabama, and that's the thing about Texas. They play down to the level of competition, up to it. They
play up to it. That's
year. Man, it hasn't changed. So Iowa State's gonna be tough for them. I really do believe that. Especially,
I would take Iowa.
All of them have that target on their back when you're Texas, because I agree, because they're leaving the Big 12 to the SEC. Everyone wants to get one knockout punch on them.
Facts. Yeah.
Ducks at ASU. They're in Tempe. They should beat the crap out of ASU. I think that's going to happen. They still remain alive. they went out. They have a really good shot of making the playoffs, in my opinion. If you beat Washington, obviously that's really what it comes down to. One of the Ducks guys, you want to touch on them until they play.
I mean, Bo Nix threw for 404 scores last week.
Bo Nix is leading the Heisman race technically right now, which is crazy to say. Not out of Campo calling him Bo Heisman all summer. I'm like, yeah, all right. Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah, Bo Heisman's not even a joke. Granted, I think there's something to say that like the Heisman favorite has changed every single week.
Right.
Only one guy has kind of stayed within that top three. I don't know who it is. Anyways, and so Bo Heisman is.
Who is it, man? I can't keep the people listening. They want to know. Who is it?
Well, I think his name is. So he leads the all of college football in total yards and total touchdowns, and he only has 5 turnovers on the year. Jaden Daniels.
That kid.
But I mean, at the end of the day,
pretty good.
If Bo Nix keeps going for like 303 scores and they win out, make the playoffs, win the Pac-12, that's one of those where he did put up the stats and they put up the season. Granted, not Jaden Daniels' fault. This defense gave up 45, 42, and 52. But still, like, you have to give Bo Nix credit. You got him. Yeah. And so Oregon State, they're good at taking care of these like very, very subpar teams where Washington keeps it closer. And so, like you said, they're just going to cream Arizona State. Path in front of them. I like it.
Yeah, I think, I mean, it is a lot of points, though, 23.5. And so I don't know. I mean, it will be interesting, though, because you're right. Oregon seems to take care of the lesser competition a little bit better than Washington does.
Yeah, Washington always plays it tight, where Oregon they smoke teams. Like Stanford, they beat them by 40, I think.
I think Oregon, their team's just built a little bit better too. Like honestly, like I feel like if Oregon were to make the playoff, like out of the Pac-12 teams, they probably would have the better shot against like a Michigan or against like a Georgia or one of these like more physical teams. I think Oregon on defense for sure is built a little bit better that way.
Yeah. Good head coach matters, especially when you get the 3-4 weeks to prepare. It's huge.
Yeah, I mean, people were giving Dan a lot of shit because he was, I just think of right away it was that Georgia game last year, opening.
Yeah.
Hey, you're off the map. Like, you're not even close.
That's his fault. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. But that stink hung over them
for sure
throughout the year, and now they're actually still a contender. Obviously, they're at 6, and with Bo Nix. It's still crazy. I don't know if we talked about it last time. That I saw a video of Bo Nix playing against Justin Herbert. It was Auburn Bo Nix against Oregon.
That was his game number 1.
He's been
and
here
he let
for
a game
winning
drive, dude. He let a game
that's
winning
messed
drive.
up.
Yeah, that's wild.
I was a sophomore in college. I remember watching that on a Saturday in somebody's apartment. Like just a random college apartment in Baton Rouge. I remember watching that game. That's how long ago that was.
It's been a while.
That's nuts. Man.
Washington, Oregon State, big one here. I think if Washington, guys, I was saying this kind of before when they released here. I didn't think Washington was going to bounce FSU just yet. They have a very similar strength of schedule currently. They played, and Oregon, they beat them obviously, but FSU, I wouldn't put them yet because of this game. I think if they beat Oregon State here at Oregon State, they will jump to 4 at this point. I agree. Yeah. I do, because that wins big, and they're not, like you said, they're the plus points here. We like those points, kind of like we like Mizzou points. We like those points.
Well, and it's like getting to the point where just because a team doesn't lose doesn't mean that they can't be bounced by somebody else. Because we're getting that late where it's got a strength of schedule and who a team behind you plays. Like, I know you can only play who's in front of you, but we're getting to that point in the season where if you have a win against the number 11 team in the country, especially if Washington kind of takes care of business, wins by like 7, 8, something like that points, they got to jump FSU at this point. Like, even if FSU smokes who they're playing, you have to do it. So, but 2.5, that's kind of surprising. That makes me nervous. Yeah, because I still like Washington, and I think if they get into the playoffs, they could be dangerous just because that offense is awesome. And it's not talked about. Their defense actually is not bad. They do have a pretty solid defense, and it looked good against Oregon, who's the one, I guess, decent team that they played. But them being a 2.5-point dog, clearly somebody knows soming, and so it might. I
feel like I like Oregon State to win the game. Honestly,
really,
I don't know. Washington just keep doing it. Like, it's kind of like Texas. It's not as gross as Texas,
right?
But it's kind of similar where they look almost a little bit worse and worse and worse ever since their big win against Oregon. which is easy to do when you don't play.
I'll say this then.
Game.
I think Washington or Texas are going to lose this week. One or the other.
I like that.
One of those are going to lose. I don't know who, but one of those.
Tough road games. They got 2 tough road games. Yeah, especially Washington. Oregon State's legit. They are legit at 11 there. So we move on to Florida State, North Alabama. No line. There's no line there. And there shouldn't be. No, there shouldn't be. There is no line. Florida State. North Alabama. I think is FCS. I don't even know. I'm great with mascots. I don't even know what that is.
I think it's like a. I was just looking at it. I want to say it's some form of tiger.
Let's guess. All right, everyone take a guess and let's look it up.
It's a cat. I know it. On God, it's a cat. It's definitely a cat.
You got to be specific. What are you saying? What cat?
All right, that's a specific. It's a form of cat. It's either. I'm going Bobcats.
Jaguar. I think a Jaguar.
Oh shit! I like Jaguar.
Jaguar.
It's Jaguar. I'm switching it. I'm going. No, I'll stay Bobcat.
All right, Bobcat, Jaguar. I'm gonna go.
It's a Jaguar, I think.
I'm gonna go Wildcat.
Classic.
All right, let's see. Wow, it is Leo the Third, and it is a live lion mascot.
Oh, it's a lion.
It was a cat. The cat team. There you go.
Okay, I'll take that.
Shout out North Alabama.
Cat, so yeah, that
moving on.
Okay. Yeah, Florida State, whatever. I don't know who's their next game. Are we gonna like?
No, it's at the Swamp at Florida.
Oh right. Their last game
at the Swamp.
And then they'll go play Louisville.
Yeah.
It's not gonna be easy. But I think they're gonna scoot in. It's gonna be like the Jameis year, that first playoff when they went and played Oregon, and then he had the backwards fumble. Yeah. And they just looked. Everyone's like, Florida State's not good, but they're undefeated. We got to give it to them. And then they're just gonna look awful if they make it into the playoffs. They'll look terrible.
My hot take, like Stu kind of did with the 2 games. I think one of these next 2 games after North Alabama, either Florida or Louisville, they're gonna lose. I
agree.
I don't think they're
I'll ride
really
that.
Don't. Big Blue.
Big Blue.
Stu, I want you to touch on Big Blue, the Ann Arbor correspondent, the Michigan
JJ McNice.
Are we touching on the drama or the team?
We can skate past the drama a little bit. I know Jim Harbaugh's sick. He's an iron wall. It's a big
Don't
deal.
Get the America's team thing. I just don't get
it. I don't either.
I don't either.
What's like that's usually when you talk about adversity, because he's like, America should love any team that faces this sort of adversity. Usually when you talk about adversity, it's like, I don't know, something completely different, something that like is completely out of their control. This adversity is like I don't want to say they did it, but like you did it yourselves a little bit. Like it's self-made adversity.
They definitely were doing it. Like it's happening.
I get his point he was trying to make.
But he's just an odd cat. You know how.
Yeah, I think he more meant along the lines of like villains necessarily is like the point he was trying to get across. I think in their eyes, they're probably, or in his eyes, they're America's team for sure. So I mean, I think he believes that definitely.
They've always been that in his eyes. Like that's nothing's changed for him.
But no, I think whether like people want to say it's self-inflicted adversity or what, like at the end of the day, you can't deny the fact that these players, they're facing outside noise right now. Like that's just the truth. That's what it is. And like that would affect probably most teams, like honestly, having that type of spotlight on them, honestly. I mean, it's honestly what the entire college football world is talking about. You look at any of these talking heads, they got a segment talking about what's going on with Michigan every single day pretty much. So I mean, I think it's impressive to go into Happy Valley against a top 10 team. I mean, obviously it's an ugly game, low scoring, but I mean, you win by a bigger margin than Ohio State won against them at home. And after Ohio State beat Penn State, everyone wanted to say, oh, best win in college football. Oh, like that's why they were number 1 pretty much essentially, because Notre Dame already was looking kind of fraudulent by the time the first rankings came out. So I think people are being a little bit quiet about how big of a win that is, to be honest, probably because of the speculation and everything going on with Michigan right now. But yeah, I think it was an impressive win for sure. And I think if you're a Michigan fan like we are, Dak partially, I should say, I think you're pretty happy. You're pretty happy with that game on Saturday, and you're feeling pretty good about this game against Maryland.
Yeah, and I feel like people, at least like from my perspective. I don't think people are making it so like the Penn State win doesn't look as big because of anything to do with the off the field stuff. I think that's a little bit separate. I think it's more so the fact that people are starting to Penn State just fired their offensive coordinator. And so I think people are starting to realize Penn State is probably not a good football team.
The same Penn
and
State. They're the same.
It's almost a little unfortunate Ohio State played them first, because if Michigan had played them first and had that exact same game, it would look like a massive win in college football. Ohio State played them. They played them ugly. Penn State hasn't looked really any better since then. Ohio State has looked the same since then. Michigan went in and played. It was a very similar game. I know they won by a larger margin, and it was on the road, but it was a super, super similar game. So I think people are like, okay, that's Penn State. That's just what they are. Michigan went in, took care of business. Props to them, especially with everything going on. That's probably why the line was 4. So definitely props to them. But I think it's more of a Penn State is probably not good. And so everyone's just waiting for Michigan, Ohio State. That's what they want to see. Like that's the game that matters.
With the Penn State Ohio State game too, and the Michigan Penn State game, Penn State, they got their touchdown to make it a little bit closer towards the very end of the game, whereas the Ohio State game, it was Ohio State who got their touchdown at the very end of the game to pull away a little bit more. So kind of a little bit of a difference, even though it was close scores. I think the Michigan win is a little bit more dominant in Penn State's own home stadium. So I think you got to kind of that little nod there. But yeah, no, I agree. Penn State, everyone knows their offense is horrible and it's mid. And I think, like you were saying, that definitely takes away from the significance of the win.
Yeah, I mean, it's their best win. It's their best opponent by a landslide they played. Like, even though Penn State's, like we said, they're kind of just the same Penn State. Like, they have played nobody even close to that. Their next best opponent was probably Rutgers, I believe. So Penn State, it's still a very good win in a hostile
Rutgers this week.
Then they play Rutgers this week. Yeah. I mean, the thing with Michigan too, I'll just touch them real quick about it, is I think for Michigan's sake, is someone who's been a fan and growing up there and seeing them really bad, decent, good, solid, all in between with all the coaches we've had just in our fandom. Like this probably is almost necessary for Michigan, because they have been like the name, the brand, Big Blue, the big house, everything. They've had that, and they're finally now winning Big Ten championships. And like they're not a villain, and I'm not saying they need to be a villain, but almost they kind of do. Like, you kind of need to use this as fuel and not just, oh, we made the playoffs again. No, like, go and just win the title. Like, the sign stealing has been called out. You keep Harbaugh out or not, whatever goes on will go on. The whole process we don't need to get into. That's another topic.
Whatever.
Yeah. But like, whatever, exactly. They still won. They're still a better team. And until, once the Ohio State game happens, if Ohio State and whoever wins that game, Michigan game, like that, to me, is a true title contender. And like I said, Michigan they know about the sign stealing now. Like, in their defense, it's like, if Harbaugh's out for it, whatever, it's like, you got to let the kids play. That's how I feel. You got to let the kids play. It's not the kids. It's Harbaugh's fault, if you want to call it that. But like, they still have to figure that out. Like, Michigan's going to go about their process and go to court with Harbaugh. So whatever.
That's what I was kind of, you touched on. I was like kind of curious about it, because I feel like Penn State, I know they had the corny sign stealing video. What was that? Was that their DC?
Well, then the guy in their defender did. I forgot.
I almost felt like this is like just total speculation. I feel like Penn State players aren't like that pissed off about it, because like, you're still just like going up against those guys. You still want to go win. Like, you got other things you're thinking about. You're not sitting there being like, oh, screw these guys. They stole Big Ten championships from us. You're trying to go get your own Big Ten championship right now. So I feel like they didn't use that. Ohio State is for sure going to use that. Like, that's going to be Ryan Day's that's going to be Ryan Day's number one motivator going into that game. He's going to be feeding them that they stole games from them and they stole championships from them. And that is going to be their number one. I feel like Penn State, not as prevalent for them. They're just trying to go win a football game. They got smoked. But Ohio State, that is going to be number one thing on their mind. Is the stupid ass sign stealing stuff.
It's a catch-22 for these guys that are on the hot seat, specifically with Jim Harbaugh being suspended, because like, it's already been a bad look for you these past 2 years, taking the L's to Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah.
And you're pissed about it. You think taking L's to Sharon Moore, an interim head coach, is a better look? If I'm James Franklin, I'm embarrassed after that. You got out-coached in your home stadium by a guy who found out that morning who was going to be the head coach. Like, if I'm James Franklin, I'd rather lose to Jim Harbaugh than not Jim Harbaugh. At least I don't know.
I told Kreitz this. I had the little tinfoil hat.
I like the tinfoil hat thing.
I had a small
I'm
tinfoil hat. So like I understand, obviously Harbaugh, he did the self suspension, so then it couldn't be earlier on in the year. So then he couldn't be suspended for stuff potentially next year. It was more preemptive like this. You got to think when all this stuff doesn't just come out of nowhere. They had to know that there was some sort of private investigator going on. They had to know that there was maybe the NCAA digging into this at least a couple of months in advance. I'd be curious, not in terms of why they sat Harbaugh for those first 3 games. They did 4 different head coaches, 2 in 1 game. And so each single game 1, game 2, game 3 had a different head coach. I'm curious if they got a small whiff of that and they were like, just in case, we got to figure out who we have coaching these big time games.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, those first 3 games, who can, you could try anybody out there as a head coach. Doesn't matter if they were winning that.
Right.
But doing that is more like,
sample size.
I know some people were like, well, these guys are getting a trial.
Yeah.
They were like, they're getting a trial run. It's like a head coach for another job. Probably not. Like, like that's not what gets you another head coaching gig. So almost like a trial for like, all right, who's the best head coach if we need somebody in, let's say, a playoff game or an Ohio State game or now a Penn State game. And so I know it's tinfoil hat. That's a hot take, but
no, I like it. I think it did kind of prepare them for it because like the way they coached, they were saying, I think it was like Joel Klatt was talking about it. Apparently, Sharon Moore, he was still calling the offense for the game, but they gave the timeout responsibilities to, like, they said to Jesse Minter, if you want to call one or need to call one, like, you can call one. And then Mike Hart was also a clock watcher, like, in a situation like timeout.
They got to figure it out.
Yeah, they did it really by committee still, even though Sharon Moore was, like, the head coach. But, like, no, I like that theory because they all did get, like, the experience they needed, and it seems like it was almost perfect and meant to be.
Yeah, add on to one last thing to that theory. It's like they knew something was up with them, probably at least like getting exposed to Ohio State. You can't tell me all that stuff because Ohio State knew about the sign stealing later on and apparently was telling, or at least a Big Ten team was, I'm sure it was Ohio State, TCU who dropped 51 on Michigan's head. Yeah. That doesn't just happen. Michigan's like, whoa, what's going on here? We're supposed to be the best defense, if not whatever, top 3 or whatever they were statistically last year, best defense in the country. Going into that game, you get 51 put on your head. Like, yeah, something's up. Something's going on. So I think it's a great. You said that. I'm like, I don't think it's that simple thing. I think that.
I don't either.
Usually, I'm gonna take full credit for that one too. Usually, takes from Twitter. That was no. Right off the dome. Yeah, that was. I was waking up. I think I said that Saturday morning. I was woken up like a little.
Oh yeah. I was sitting right there.
We flipped on the game. I looked at you. I was like, how about this? One of these.
Let me ask you this.
Let me ask you this.
I mean, a little crazy thing I was hearing that I'll tell you boys too. This is like obviously not going to really happen, but so the last 2 times Michigan's played at Maryland, John Harbaugh has been on the sidelines for both of those games. People were saying, what if John Harbaugh throws on the whistle for this trip to Maryland this upcoming weekend and acts as
coach
during the game?
They do have a mini bye. They have a mini bye because they
have Thursday night.
That is number one. I don't even know how that would be allowed. That's blasphemous. And I don't. I feel like Jimmy's pride too. He'd be like, no, my brother's not coaching my football team. yeah. I don't know.
I know what you're saying, Stu. What if he's?
It would be the funniest thing ever if it happened.
Eyes would be on him.
But still a good, it's still a good win. Yeah, you got to give him props.
Yep. Good win. They had to do it.
If they not lose, super sexy.
In my opinion, even if they beat Ohio State, they're out. They're not even going to be in the playoff consideration because then Penn State would be going into, they would have won that head on technically, right? Or would Ohio State wouldn't have been Michigan. I know that.
What do you mean? In Michigan?
If Michigan lose to Penn State but beats Ohio State, they're not going into the Big Ten championship.
Oh yeah, no, they wouldn't have a shot at the playoff at that point.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
No.
I mean, to be honest, boys, it depends how it shakes out. But to be honest, I don't even think Michigan's chances are that awesome. Even if they lose to Ohio State, I think they probably don't make it.
I think they're they haven't gotten enough credit this year. They just haven't.
Yeah. There's just too much Michigan hate going on.
Too much Michigan hate, and you don't have enough big wins on your resume. You just don't.
And like
nobody they played was good besides Penn State.
It is a little like. Granted, like the voters are a tiny bit different, I suppose, but only putting up 24 and stuff, it just doesn't look as like, oh shit. Like when Georgia goes and drops 45 on Ole Miss, Obviously, Penn State's defense is probably better than Ole Miss's defense, but it's one of those things where the people like the points. They like the points. And Stu's out. And there we go.
Stu's out.
He froze. Yeah. I see him freeze.
We were cooking. We're almost done. We'll finish up here.
We're almost done, but I saw him like this.
Yeah.
For like a long time. You got another Zen.
Yeah. Come on in.
I'm throwing in.
Come on in, grab a Zen.
Dude, I got to get like a chair.
All right, so moving on, Ohio State taking on the Golden Gophers. Obviously, the Michigan-Ohio State game after that in Ann Arbor. Kind of touched on it all here. Ohio State, Marvin Harrison, that's their main guy. Another guy who's on the Heisman race, as he should be. That's their main piece. Going to be a top pick. We were talking about where we want to see him get drafted. He's going to be definitely a top, I'd say probably top 3 pick.
You can affirm his Heisman too. I think he wins the Heisman, honestly, if they beat Michigan.
Yeah, he could, especially if he balls out in that game for sure.
Yep.
So there's that with Ohio State. More to come with the Michigan-Ohio State game. That's where everything will kind of break down. Georgia, Tennessee. Georgia is 10.5. I like the Bulldogs in Knoxville there. Just killed Lane Kiffin's Ole Miss team. Tennessee, I don't know what they're playing for at this point. They just got smoked by Mizzou. They might show out because it's at Tennessee. It's going to be a big night game. Probably, I think it's a night game. I'm assuming. Night game.
Is it? For some reason, I thought it was 2:30. I could be wrong there.
And if it's 2:30, that's even more grim in my eyes because they need a night game for it to even be close.
It's 2:30 on CBS. That's what I thought.
Yeah, that's
is this
great.
I'll ask you guys.
Take the 10.5. That's
dude, is this feels like a disrespectful Georgia line? Because when Georgia played Mizzou, it was closer to 14. Isn't that right? I think. And so, and they just smoked Ole Miss by like 30 points. And Tennessee keeps getting cooked by good teams. So 10.5 makes no sense to me. I don't get it. No clue.
Got to be an atmosphere thing.
Yeah, I think Georgia's going to smoke them, to be honest. I feel like Georgia's probably going to cover that easy.
Yeah, I like Georgia to cover there. That's the top 25. We will see more of that big game there against Tennessee, Georgia. But like I said, we all kind of on the same page. I think Georgia's going to handle their business there. Moving on, I believe. Are we up to Dak's dog?
We can do Dak's dog.
Yeah, let's rip Dak's dog before we do.
We got a little graphic.
So we do. So why don't you start talking about who your pick for Dak's dog is this week?
So we haven't introduced her yet, but I'll let my co-host here take the reins. She's new to the show, and so she wanted to introduce Dak's dog first. Yeah. No, Dak's dog. That was.
I was like, wait, where is she? I don't even see her.
I just realized. I was like,
big.
And you guys didn't say anything, and I was like,
"Hey, I'm not big."
I thought, and so like when I said that, I was saying that you guys didn't say anything. I was like, man, are they expecting me to do like a women's voice, like really commit to this? I was like, I cannot do it. Like I don't got it in me. And so I was like, oh shit.
Bro, I genuinely had no idea who you were talking about.
I pointed to her. Oh, you can't see my hand. You can't see my hand. No. I was talking about, and I was trying to come up with like a name. I was trying to come up with a name for her, and I couldn't think of anything. I just blanked. And then you guys said nothing. And I was like, oh, this is a bad bit. This is a really bad bit. This is like, I was like, that's like if we left that in, that's like a cringy bit. I don't like it.
I'm really gonna insert a fake video you had planned. Like that's why I thought that was going. I was like, all right.
With the Porter voice.
Dude, that's definitely getting left in.
All right.
Bro, that's gonna be like a reel on the Instagram, bro.
Yeah.
That's like the
that was a tough one. It was so bad because you guys. I kept going. And you guys are just both like.
I was like,
and then it ended. It was just like someone's got to say something. So I just had to say something. I was just like, okay, so we'll get into it.
I thought you were like at first I thought you were about to like lift Fig up or something.
That's what I thought you were going. I thought Fig was like in vicinity. I was like, all right.
No. All right, whatever. Did we do? So did we say who my last week one was? The week prior? Yeah, we did.
We didn't say who it was. It was Dylan Johnson.
Dylan Johnson from Washington. Did we not say it on the last pod? I think we did.
Oh, we said it on the last pod, yeah.
Yeah, on the last one, yeah. Dylan Johnson, he had a bunch of yards. Good dog.
So when are you bringing on Fig though? When do the people get to see Fig?
Well, we could do it right now. We could bring her on.
Well, I feel like should we do it now or should it be?
Should I go get her?
Is there going to be like a
big reveal? Dog? Yeah, we'll do a big reveal. Yeah, she's got a little pimple thing on her face right now.
We'll choose at the end of the season. We'll do a Dax top dog where you'll choose one Dax dog from all of the Dax dogs.
The Dax dog.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And then Fig gets brought on to celebrate that.
Yeah, so this week the Dax dog, it's an easy one. It's the easiest one I feel like we've had the entire season. It's the Heisman Trophy winner. I don't want to hear the Bo Nix. I don't want to hear the Marvin Harrison. I don't want to hear any of it. The Michael Penix, whatever. Still, I don't want to hear it. 600 yards, 5 touchdowns. He's got 4,000 yards total on the season. He's got 38 touchdowns total on the season. He's got only 5 interceptions. His worst performance was 24 points against Florida State. That was week 1. His second worst one, you could say, was Bama, where he put up 28 and he left the game. He left the game 9 minutes early. Jaden Daniels is having his. Oh yes, wow. There we go.
There he is.
Jaden Daniels, that kid, he's having a historic season. He's putting up numbers that we legitimately have never seen before. No player in college football history has thrown for 12,000 yards and rushed for 3,000 yards in their career. The biggest difference between him and the pack is you look at it, the passing yards are all similar. The passing stats are the same. Then you look over here, and he's busting off these 85-yard touchdown runs, these 50-yard touchdown runs. He's got 1,000 yards on the ground for the season. He's a different breed right now. Caleb Williams is insane, but Jaden Daniels right now is the best player in college football, hands down. I know they have 3 losses. That's not on him. That's not his fault. Throw up the stats. You can't see the rushing yards. That's okay. That's fine. There we go. 12 carries, 234 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, throwing for 372. He had a couple of the nicest balls I have ever seen. Pause. A couple of the nicest throws that I have ever seen. Both to Brian Thomas. And
nicest balls.
He's putting on a show. He's going to be in New York. We'll see if he ends up winning it. It depends on what Bo Nix does, but there's been a different favorite, I feel like, every single week, and he's been the only dude consistent top 4. I feel like everybody unanimously agrees that he's kind of earned it and deserved it, but it's just whether they're going to give it to him or not. So
right.
That's Dak's dog.
To be fair, Dak, I mentioned this today. I was like, they probably would have at least 2, if not 3 more losses if that's not their quarterback. Like, he means that much. The Arkansas game probably would have lost. Mizzou, probably not. Like, if you just had someone pretty, decent in there, he's been that good. He's been fantastic. I couldn't believe it was that many yards. I mean, again, we were pretty intoxicated at the game, watching it all. We're there, having a great time, but he balled, absolutely balled.
Like I said, not his fault. LSU's defense couldn't stop a bunch of turds dressed up as college football players. Yeah, they physically couldn't do it. So that's not on him, but
still a Pac-12 QB technically.
Still a Pac-12, yeah. He's at Arizona State, and he balled when he was a freshman there, and so give him credit. But he's unstoppable. Show me a defense that can stop him. I would truly be shocked because he's that gifted. When he's got to run, he can get it done with his legs, and man, he throws a pretty ball. Can't lie. That's the biggest thing he improved on from last year. That was a nice deep ball. So Dak's dog, without a doubt, hands down. And I hope he keeps doing it this year for the last few games.
All right.
It's Dak's dog. You got our can't miss pick. Stu, do you want to start us off? I don't know what the ticker
was. That was a good segment right there.
That was Dak.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. This is rolling the dice. I don't know who's gonna come.
That's all right. We'll figure it out.
All right. Dak. All right, Dakota.
Yeah. For reference, all of us went 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3. Not bad. Not bad. And I think
that's our best showing yet, right?
Episode last week, we all said the right team, right? I had my Marshall Thundering Herd.
Who'd you got? USC.
I'm Mizzou.
Yeah. I mean, this was I feel comfortable with my picks. Again, going back to the intoxicated thing. I think when I sent in my picks, I told Stu, I said, please don't tweet these yet. I'm pretty drunk right now. I want to confirm in the morning. Woke up in the morning.
Not feeling them that day. You're like, I don't like these. I don't like these.
I was taking a lot of heat from the fellas on some of my picks, and so I started backtracking a little bit. Woke up in the morning, didn't feel any different. So Mizzou was easy, USC was easy, FSU, turd bags, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, they just can't win by 2 scores, but that's fine. I'll take it. 2 out of 3. Let's do it again.
All right. And then do you want to tell us your pick this week, Derek, or should we move into the next?
Yeah, I'll do. So my pick this week, the line, we have Iowa State at 7.5. That's what I'm taking.
Yeah. I
think Texas is going to go in there. They're probably going to win. I'm sure they'll go up by 3 or 4 scores again, but they just keep winning games by 4 points. Like that's just, and it's a night game.
Yeah.
Night game
of names.
All right. I like it. Who we got next? We got Kreitz. All right.
Yeah. Took Big Blue. They covered there against Penn State. Marshall Thundering Herd won the tribute game for the fallen ones, all black jerseys, just like
that was a great call.
Thank you. Yeah, that one's like I did a little research on that one. BYU not enough
fallen
research.
Ones.
BYU not enough research. They got destroyed by Iowa State.
Who'd they play?
Iowa State. So
okay.
that was just a miss. Big miss there, but we move on. We'll take the 2 out of 3. It's not awful. Not awful.
All right, and then are you making your pick right now?
Yeah, my fault. Game I am going with. So we said it wrong, and we kind of like what's going on earlier when we were giving the top 25. We mixed it up. Kansas is getting +8 against Kansas State in Lawrence. Give me that. I'll take the Jayhawks +8 there. We were like, what is this line? Now that we've kind of talked about it, and then we saw, that's actually Kansas +8 against Kansas State. I'm going to take the points all day in Lawrence. I think they're going to bounce back and win. That is going to be my call. Jayhawks, Rock Chalk Jayhawk.
I like that one a lot too. That makes a lot more sense and makes me like it a lot more now. But yeah, so I had Michigan as well. That was a good call. There we go. They took care of business. Mizzou as well too. Stole one from each of you boys. And then I had the Jayhawks, who unfortunately let me down this past weekend. So hopefully they can flip that around for Kreitz this upcoming week and get a cover for them. And then this week, I think I'm gonna roll with Michigan for my pick on air this week. Yeah, I'm gonna take the -19.5 from Michigan. I think they take care of business against Maryland. I think if Penn State can go in there and put up 51, Michigan should have no problem scoring against that defense. So
I like that. Yeah,
I'm going to roll with Michigan -19.5.
There we go, fellas. I mean, that's it.
Good week, fellas. Yeah.
Good week. Got some decent games. Not tons of amazing games this week, but week after that's when it all shakes out. So excited to get into it.
Big weekend. This week, are all the fellas home for the big weekend, Deck? Are you going to be back in Ann Arbor?
No, I'm going to be in Austin.
You will be in Austin. I will be up in Ann Arbor land with you, Stu, probably watching the game together.
Yeah, I think this is the first time I've missed Michigan-Ohio State at home. Yeah. I've been home for it every single time.
It'll be toxic there. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah.
People are going to get got. That's going to happen. People are going to get smoked, I feel like. There will be
That's going to be chippy. Oh, yeah. That's gonna
be chippy. Dude, totally. I mean, dude, the last time this game was in Ann Arbor, it was magic. Couldn't write it better in a storybook. It's snow.
That's what I was on the big screen.
Yeah, that's when you're on the Michigan tweet that. We got to tweet that picture out from the account when you're legit tweeted off Michigan because you stormed the field. Crazy.
100%.
Crazy.
That's wild.
What episode, fellas? We will be back next week. Things will shake out a little different for episode 4. It's episode 3 of the Reaction Committee.